Are you interested in USC's Hybrid Physical Therapy School? Are you curious as to wondering how this hybrid model actually works? You know that there's online components and in-person components, so how does that work out? How many times do they meet a year? Are students competent in the clinic, and do they feel confident as a physical therapist when they graduate? How much does this cost? And what will it mean for you as far as flexibility goes? So in this video, I had the privilege of interviewing Hannah Coffin, who is a student right now in USC's Hybrid Physical Therapy program. All your questions and concerns that you might have, and maybe even skepticism that you might have as far as what a hybrid model program looks like, she has all those answers, and rest assured, she feels absolutely competent as a student physical therapist who's in the clinic right now. So let's hear what she has to say, and make sure you take some notes. I'd love it if you have some comments below so that I can ask her personally, or I can look into other questions and concerns in this hybrid model program. So let's get into this. Lego. But today we do have Hannah Coffin, and she is a student at the USC's hybrid program. And obviously, those of you who know, it's a lot of the online learning, right? And then you go in person for some things. So Hannah's going to be talking a lot about that today. Please make sure you have your notes out and any questions that may come up, and please save that till the end so we can get started. All right, Hannah, go ahead, and you got the floor. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming today. My name's Hannah. I am a second-year DPT student at USC's hybrid program. I went to the University of Alabama at Birmingham for my bachelor's in biology, and then I got my master's in biotechnology. Yeah, that is the short of who I am.
Great, thank you so much. I know when you mentioned like you got your master's in biotechnology, that must have raised a lot of questions for a lot of students here, because most of them are just going from undergrad to doctorate. What made you go along that path, and then how do you felt like that might have leveraged you to getting accepted into this program?
Yeah, so I was a student athlete in college. I had a 5th year of eligibility left, and I wanted to use it, and I had got my bachelor's in 4 years. So I knew I wanted to go into some sort of medical field, and I had already been accepted to UAB's MBA program, but I'm like, I don't really know if an MBA is going to set me apart for a medical professional school. So they had a biotechnology accelerated 1-year program at UAB. And I had a background in research with undergrad. So I'm like, all right, this is bench to commercialization. This is going to set me apart in some way, probably more so than an MBA will. So that is how I got into that.
Yeah, that's wow. That, I think you were super strategic with what you wanted to do. And, those of you who are listening right now, she realized like there was this opportunity for an MBA, but then she also saw that there was this opportunity where it's like, hey, maybe I can merge this and double up on this profession so that it can make me stand out more for what's actually going well or going good already with as far as, being in the sciences and things like that. Okay, well, thank you for that. Let's kind of move on to a little bit about the hybrid program. I know there's a lot of questions that students have about it, but can you give like a summary as far as what it is, how long it takes, maybe about like how much money you're investing in, things like that?
Yeah, so the hybrid program at USC, it's the exact same curriculum as the residential program. It's still a 3-year program as most DPT programs are. We learn the same things as the residentials at basically the same time. Our tests are kind of flipped in that like they might take practical exams before written, and like we usually take our written, but they're like on back-to-back weeks. So we learn the same things that they do. But yeah, it is a 3-year program. The first 2 years are mostly didactic content, and we do have a few clinical rotations, which I'm actually on one right now. And then the last year, it's basically all clinical rotations. I want to say it's 13 to 16 weeks. So it's majority of your third year with a little bit of coursework. But yeah, and the program, I get to be wherever I can get access to Wi-Fi, which is a big reason why I applied for a hybrid program. And I only have to go to Los Angeles to campus, health science campus, for practical exams and what we call them immersions. It's about 7 to 8 days long. And the first 5 days, it's really just there to solidify our hands-on skills that we obviously can't practice when, we're in a hybrid program, but it's just to refine doing all of those mobilizations, doing manipulations and stuff like that. But the catch there is it's not like this is the first time we're doing it when we go to campus. We have community volunteers. So it's whoever's in your household, a friend of yours, somebody who's essentially willing to act as your patient, and you are practicing those skills throughout the semester. And then when you get to immersion, whether it's for midterms or finals, you are basically asking your professors like, hey, like, how is my hand placement for this? Or can I do this better? Do you have any kind of clinical pearls to offer on this? Yeah, so I'm in my second year now. I am currently on a 6-week rotation. I'm in a sports rotation right now in Gainesville, Florida, with the University of Florida's Orthopedic and Sports Institute. And I got 1 week left, and then I get to go back to my home. I live in Flagstaff, Arizona. And then fall semester basically starts up with the didactic coursework again. We got cardiopulm, we got neuro, we got all the fun things this semester.
Ooh, man. Well, thank you for that. That was a lot of information, but great information. Really appreciate that. Let's talk a little bit about kind of like the curriculum and how that works, because just to clarify a bit, so didactic means like this is where like all the studying and the hardcore of like physical therapy schooling is all about. So you might have like your pathophysiology, your anatomy physiology, your ortho, neuro, cardiopulmonary, that kind of stuff. So you mentioned you're learning online and you're with the same coursework as the people in the, that are residents or, in person. And then you said you do like an immersion. So does that mean after every term you have to go to USC's campus, and then you're doing like 5 to 7 or 8 days of, being in person, and then you go back to your location? Like what's that schedule look like?
That's pretty much it. So the hybrid program, when you come in as a first year, you get started before the residential. So the residential pathway, they start in August. But we actually started, for my first year, we started in May, June, and we only took 5 credits, but they do it that way so you can kind of get your feet wet, and without just throwing you right into having like, oh my goodness, I have 18 credit course load right now. This is so much. They give you 5 credits to start with in the summer. We take pathophysiology and evidence-based practice and physical therapy were the first 2 classes I took. Had COVID not been a thing last year, we would have gone to an immersion at the end of that abbreviated semester. I want to say it would have been in like this time last year, but there were no exams during that time because that immersion was essentially another way to just kind of gradually introduce us to it. But unfortunately, it got canceled and we had a Zoom immersion. There was no exams, but just kind of giving us an idea of how things should go. And then once our first summer semester concluded, the fall, we had 12 credits, and it was a lot of musculoskeletal anatomy. I'm trying to remember. Last year was such a blur. It's really hard.
Yeah, went by so fast.
But the first year of USC's program is you get all of your musculoskeletal, you get a little bit of neuro, you get a little bit of other things that you will need to know. But as far as, how to do manual muscle tests, take range of motion, special tests, all and for upper and lower, that was the entire first year. So for fall and spring semester, we had to go to campus as USC was able to get their protocols in place for having students safely on campus. I had to go halfway through the fall semester for midterms so I can take practical exams after my written midterms. And then at the end of fall semester, I had to go after written finals for practical finals. And it was the same thing for spring. In spring, I actually had a 2-week clinical experience. It was really short, but another way to kind of get our feet wet.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
I had a question. So, as far as your preparation when your clinical rotations, you had your 2-week one. I think you said you might have had one again, and then you're in one again now. Or I'm not sure if you had that middle one, but do you feel like you are prepared, as to maybe compared to being in person where you can actually physically, feel manual muscle testing, range of motion versus a hybrid learning? How do you feel like your preparedness for the clinical rotations have been?
Yeah, actually, I feel extremely prepared. Like I am not knocking any of the other students who are at the clinic, but I think that I know my stuff a lot better than a lot of the other students who are there and observing. And my CI has managed my clinical instructor, the therapist who is essentially in charge of me and supervises me, has supervised another student at the same time. And just comparatively, in a just totally non-judgmental way, I really feel like I know a lot more than a lot of the other students there. But yeah, the hard part of the clinical experiences for me personally, I think, is getting used to how a clinic works, getting used to their documentation system. But thankfully, the one at the clinic that I'm at now, pretty easy to learn, but just learning how your CI works, how they operate, what they like to do, their style of care. So you're adjusting to somebody else's like personality and stuff like that. And you got to do a little bit of mental gymnastics to kind of figure things out. But I feel really like settled in, and it's unfortunate because it's only a 6-week. I feel like the first 2 weeks, it took a little bit of adjusting to just figure out how things work in the clinic. But now I'm like, I got, 10 patients on the schedule right now. Like I know how to flow them through. If it's an evaluation, I feel like I can adequately determine if they're appropriate for therapy or if we need to like refer out or treat and refer.
Hannah Kaufman, I love the confidence. Woo! That is great. I love that you're able to, confidently say like, hey, you know what? I mean, I'm not, bashing or whatever on other students, but like, this is who I am and I feel super prepared. And, USC is giving me a great education to have me perform in this way, which is fantastic to hear and pretty affirming as far as like, is this hybrid learning model actually gonna work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Quick question as far as your clinical rotation, and you said you're working with athletes now, and I'm sure a lot of students might want to work with athletes as well. Were you able to choose this location? Did you have to like reach out to them and they had to confirm with you? Did USC have to choose it for you? Like, how did that process go?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our clinical teaching team, we have 2 faculty members who kind of are in charge of overseeing the whole pairing and placing students at sites. I got placed at this one because every now and then somebody from the clinical teaching team will email and say like, hey, this site at this place is accepting students for that 6-week experience, for that 8-week experience. Like, if you're interested, let me know. And I'm like, Sure, it's a sports setting. I have familiarity with Gainesville. I took when I was exploring undergrad programs, I actually took an official visit to UF, so kind of familiar with Gainesville.
Nice.
But you don't so when opportunities like that don't come, so a lot of people choose the hybrid program because it allows them to not have to move to Los Angeles if you don't want to or you're unable to. So we use this tool called Exact. It's a portal, and you essentially put in all of your information, what your interests are in therapy. If you have a specialty area that you're, probably you think you have interest in doing. And then for each rotation, so we have 2 2-week rotations, we have 1 6-week rotation, we have 1 8-week rotation, and then the 2 longer ones, which are anywhere from 13 to 16 weeks. I check boxes and put in addresses of the general vicinity. So say I wanted to do an experience in Los Angeles, like I just put in like health science campus address. And I'm like, hey, anywhere within a 50-mile radius, like you can put me here for this rotation. Or my family lives in Birmingham, Alabama now. Like, I'm like, can I do my 8-week here? Can you find something in 25-mile vicinity within here? And sometimes there's not availability. I haven't run into that issue yet, but some of my classmates have. And it's just with COVID, a lot of clinics have shut down. A lot of my classmates live in more rural areas, and it's like, yeah, like they can't take students, or they don't have availability there. So you do have a big say in where you get to do clinical rotations. And if a cool opportunity comes up, I'm already placed for one of my 13 weeks in Birmingham, Alabama. There is an outstanding sports clinic there. If you know Dr. Andrews, he's an orthopedic surgeon. He works out of Birmingham, Alabama, and there's the Andrews Institute at St. Vincent's Hospital that rehabs a lot of really high caliber athletes. And it just so happens that the CI there is a USC alum. So they will be my CI when I am on that rotation. So we got a whole list of like really interesting sites that were looking for students. I know there was one that came out. It's like, MLS, a professional soccer team in Cincinnati, is looking to take on a student for one experience. UFC, whoever the UFC fighters go to see in Las Vegas, like they have a clinic there that's looking for students. So if you have like a sports interest or a like interest in neuro, in stroke, anything in acute or inpatient, like they'll hook you up.
Yeah, that's super cool. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's great that you're able to, have a good selection and prioritize what you want. And USC does a good job at trying to, make sure they match whatever your desires or preferences are. And the benefits, right? Obviously, USC alum is probably one of the most like well recognized, in the world. And everyone goes, "Oh, USC is expensive," but their alumni and networking is fantastic. And this is probably a perfect example as to why you have advantages in going to USC. Along with that, I wanted to ask, what are some other benefits or advantages that you might have going to either USC or a hybrid program? I know you mentioned, obviously working online. It seems like you can travel and anywhere there's Wi-Fi. Like you can go to Hawaii if you want. You can go to wherever if you want. Could you talk a little bit more about the benefits?
Yeah. So you mentioned Hawaii, like one of my best friends in the program in my class, she's a Hawaiian native. I love that I get to have friends like literally from every corner of the country, and I get to see them all when we come to immersion. My classmates are some pretty remarkable people. Like we've got people who come from all different walks of life, hobbies, backgrounds, you name it. Like everybody is like superhuman to me. I'm like, oh my gosh, like what you do is so cool, or like their own talents. So yeah, just the people that I've got to meet and get to call my classmates and my peers and eventually my colleagues. I think the faculty with USC as a program, we have so many faculty on staff. It's wild. Talking to students at the clinic that I am working at now, we have so many more people staffed. So that's that many more brains that you get to pick and get clinical pearls from, like, and just different specialties of physical therapy or research that they have been a part of or conducted themselves. But as far as like hybrid advantage, I would absolutely, like, again, I did not have to move, and I do travel a lot. I run competitively now, so if I need to go somewhere for a competition, I am able to do that unless there is an immersion. Then I can't do that. Those are mandatory. You cannot miss them. You don't want to have to make them up either. Student had to because of COVID. It's unfortunate, but you don't want to have to make up immersion. But yeah, you can travel, be with your family. I love it, and that's why I picked this program.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely a lot of, benefits. And if you're a super busy person, such as yourself, involved in running, maybe you would have been in, Tokyo Olympics right now, and you could have totally done, Zoom and just be back in time for your immersion. That's
It
great.
would have been nice, but I would have missed I attempted to qualify for the trials, but even if I did, the trials were during an immersion week for finals. Another teammate of mine is on the USA karate team. I think she is injured, but a lot of her friends are also in Tokyo. I know a few of the people who are on the team for track, as well as the one of our marathoners got bronze yesterday. She lives in Flagler.
Yeah.
I was like screaming at the TV for her because she is like the nicest, sweetest person.
Wow, that's really amazing. And you can make connections with her, and if she ever needs any kind of rehab, Hannah Coffin at your service. Oh, okay. So we mentioned some benefits. What about some disadvantages, some cons? Like, could you think of several or a couple that you could share?
Yeah. So it's cool that I get to, meet people from all over, but at the same token, because we're not all in Los Angeles together, don't get to see them as much, don't get to hang out with them as much. If we do want to hang out, it's like, hey, like, do we want to have like a Zoom study session or a Zoom social, like something like that? But with it being COVID, a lot of the residential students weren't able to do that anyway. So I'm like, we both kind of missed out, but I don't really feel like I missed out. We have social events. I get to talk to my classmates over Zoom. But yeah, just kind of getting zoomed out and screen time, that is a little bit draining. If you do go to a hybrid program, or whether it's at USC or elsewhere, invest in some blue light glasses. They will save your eyes, save you from headaches. But yeah, I mean, just not being on campus and not having access to maybe talk to faculty as much or as frequently. And we didn't have access because of COVID. When we're at immersion, ideally, we would have access to the building and be able to go in and utilize study rooms and go to the cadaver lab as we'd like. But it was so highly regulated and closed off. But I know that's something the residential students have access to in a normal situation 24/7 because they're there. So that's not something that we would have had access to, would be to the building and to the cadaver lab, because we're just not there.
Yeah. Just kind of piggybacking off of that, you had me question about the cadavers. So, anatomy, obviously, gross anatomy is a huge deal for physical therapists, and we need to know, like, three-dimensionally, like how deep, how superficial some structures are. I know that there are, 3D models, or there's different apps that we can use virtually, but, that can't necessarily fully replace being in person and seeing the cadavers. How has your experience with the virtual learning, or maybe like they use a video and show like the cadavers, like how does that work out with anatomy for you?
Yeah, that's exactly what they do. So we do use Complete Anatomy, an app. You can just 3D turn a human around, add muscles, take away muscles, blood flow, etc. But our anatomy team, they have live, not live, but recorded dissections. Camera angles are great. You can see everything. They explain things really well, and it's in our online portal LMS system that we have access to. You can watch and rewatch over and over again, which is great, because if you miss something when you're like in person, like watching a lecture, it's like, wait, let me rewind that. Let me watch that in like half speed. So we have really good videos to refer to that are of live dissections.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. I know that's actually pretty cool, because I mean, when I was in school and they're doing it in person, there's so many things I missed. I'm asking my classmate, wait, what was that again? And I don't know. It's all right. Well, I guess we'll just, hands up on that one.
It's one of the muscles of the foot, just one of them.
Yeah, just one of them. Just guess, Okay, so I really appreciate sharing your benefits, the cons of the hybrid program. Now, if we were to rewind a little bit, as far as you going from your undergrad into DPT school, or your master's into DPT school, if you can list maybe like 1 to 3 different types of things that made you stand out, gave you the competitive edge, because getting into USC's program is not easy. And a lot of the students that we are here with are trying to get into programs like USC, or different types of just PT programs in general. What would you say made you specifically stand out?
Yeah, initially PT was not like initially what I thought I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to go to medical school initially, but the more I learned about the profession, I thought I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. The more I learned about the profession and talking to my mentors in that field, going through the application, and I got accepted, but I'm like, I don't think that this will make me happy. Learning more about PT and my experience as an athlete, I'm like, at the end of the day, like my PTs were the ones who were there for me and got me through my recovery, not a physician. Plus, reportedly, like self-reports, like PTs are just work-life balance. It's pretty good. So I'm like, that's what I want. That sounds more like me. And I still get to work in medicine. I still get to work with people, and it's a lot more people oriented, better rapport with patients, better relationship with your patients. So that's why I got into PT. But things that set me apart, other than getting a master's that I didn't plan on getting, just because I was an athlete, I think being a student athlete set me apart, certainly. I did not have the best grades in undergrad. It was because of poor coaching that I had. I had a lot of injuries throughout college due to really bad coaching. Coach was eventually fired after 2.5 years. But that was a story that I could tell in one of my essays, just about resilience. So when you are applying, like, tell them your story, let them know what you've been through. If your grades aren't stellar, let them know, like why that is the case. But thankfully my master's program, after that coach was out of the picture and mentally I could get myself back together. My master's GPA really bolstered my less than ideal undergrad GPA. Took nothing wrong with a gap year. Most of the students in my class are non-traditional, like not straight out of undergrad. USC really does take into account like that life happens, you have other passions to pursue. So really just tell them what makes you you and unique. Like best grades, it's not going to get you everywhere in life. They want to know what makes you unique and a special applicant, and why you would be an asset in this profession. I'm also a certified personal trainer. I think that might help a little bit. That's what I did for a little bit after graduating from my master's and trying to figure out, well, at that point, after I graduated from my master's, I was getting my medical school application together. But then when that, I'm like, I don't want to do this. I like completely bailed on medical school, and I moved from Birmingham, Alabama to Flagstaff to train under the coach that I train under now. And to train with a professional group. So I think the fact that I kind of dropped everything to chase a dream of mine, I also think that really kind of set me apart too. I talked about that. And I talked about, like, this is why I live in Flagstaff. This is where high level runners live and train. And this is why I would like to do the hybrid program, so I can continue to chase that dream and continue to chase my dream of physical therapy school.
I love that. Wow. The clarity as far as what you wanted to do. And you went through, different struggles, just trying to figure it out, going through the mud. And a lot of times students, stop because it's so uncomfortable to do that. You went to med school and then you're like, I completely want to change. And, that's a hard decision. And I really, really honor you for doing that and sticking to your guns and even, pursuing and highlighting those different things in your essay. And just as we're talking now, I'm sure the readers at USC felt inspired. I feel inspired. I'm sure students who are listening here feel inspired. So, we really appreciate you sharing that. Now, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned, I'll just ask a couple more questions here. You mentioned about working as a personal trainer to make a little bit extra money and kind of doing some other things. I know right now you also are a part of maybe an affiliate for some supplements, and you may also do some training as well now as a student. So how could you talk a little bit about like the money aspect, like how you can make money, what you can do on the side, additional things like that to have, make income as well as live a good life and, have this type of work student balance?
Yeah. So I actually don't have a job. I don't have a steady source of income. Thankfully, my fiance does, and he supports me through what I'm doing. I promised that. I'm like, hey, you ever want to go back to school? He's counting on me to take care of him, be like stay-at-home dad eventually. He's like, you go make all the money. Like, I'll hold down the fort now. But no, he's a runner too. So he coaches full-time and can work remotely. But as a runner, some races will offer prize money. But unfortunately, with COVID shutting all races down, I'm like, well, can't do too much about it. Things are starting to kick up again. But just training full time, like honestly, like training and being in a full-time DPT program, it is so difficult. Like, and to try to train at the level that I need to train at to see the results that I would like to get, it doesn't always happen. Like just getting out the door and getting a run in, like I have to take that as a victory, even if it might not be as long or as far as I wanted it to be. School has definitely got in the way of running at times, but I would absolutely encourage that if you're in a PT program or any kind of graduate professional program, to stay healthy and exercise. It's so hard, and just mentally it helps keep me sane. But yeah, our team in Flagstaff, we do have a few sponsors. So when racing eventually happens, like there's bonus money to be had if we do well. Yeah, but unfortunately I do not have a job, but some of my classmates do. Some of them train on the side, but me, I don't want to spread myself too thin. I'm really involved with student interest groups and student government within my class. So I'm like, I'll stick with doing that rather than trying to make money and offset the debt now. I'm like, I'll do that. That's future Hannah's problem. That's not me.
Yes. Well, yeah, I think you're absolutely smart about doing that. And, the training at the level that you're at right now, at that high competitive level, the elite level and PT school, I mean, most students can't even do that. They just school and that's it. So And I know you're a long distance runner, so I can only imagine the amount of time invested in running, recovery, all of that type of stuff. So, no worries about not having a job or anything. Like, you already are doing so much there. Quick question kind of to end here. What, is running something you want to niche down in the future, like physical therapy and running? Or what kinds of specialties do you want to get into as far as physical therapy goes? Like, what are your aspirations for the future?
Yeah, I definitely have a vested interest in sports just because I am an athlete and that is kind of what got me into the profession. But it would be cool to work with runners, but I love all sports of all backgrounds. So would not be opposed to working with a different sporting group. It's nice that I on the rotation that I'm on, because I get to see athletes who are football, basketball, soccer, dancers, runners. Everything comes through the door. So that's nice. But then the good thing about rotations clinically, it's like I'm not totally putting all of my eggs into the sports basket. If I see something else that I like or take interest to, I have no issue going on a rotation that primarily serves amputees or stroke patients. Like, if I like that, then I'll be like, yeah, I want to learn more about this. I would like to do a longer rotation with this patient population.
Yeah, great. I love the open mindset and the ability to just, grow and learn. And I think as a future clinician, that's an absolute key characteristic to have, to constantly grow and just, just refine yourself as every day goes on. Okay, so those of you who are listening, I'm going to have this time opened up for question and answer. I'm sure has been a lot of stuff that we talked about and didn't talk about. So yeah, feel free to unmute yourself and we'll just kind of go one at a time, and then we'll go from there.
Hey, Hannah, this is Dwayne. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Dwayne?
Not too bad. Hey, I got two questions. You said you're a certified personal trainer. So am I. Do you think one certificate is going to be better than other when they're looking at your application, like NCA versus ISSA?
I can't say for certain. I'm an ACE trainer. I don't put too much emphasis on the personal training, simply because I think there are other things that about your own story that are going to make you stand out more. But as far as one certification being better than another, I don't know if there is a preferred cert for that. I know if you are interested in getting into sports PT and potentially doing a residency or getting a job in sports, getting your CSCS, that is almost kind of like you have to do it, which I actually plan on taking mine, sitting for the CSCS this winter.
Okay. Yeah. I have TSAC, tactile strength and conditioning, PT, and then I'm working on my strength and conditioning and exercise therapy.
Mm-hmm. No, that's awesome. No, those I think, if you can talk about those and why those make you a unique candidate and why you chose to get those certifications, definitely talk about that.
Okay. Now, when speaking about a hybrid program, how many seats does your resident program have at USC?
I want to say the residential path has 100 seats, and then the hybrid program has 50.
Okay.
And it happened with my class. It happened with the class above it. Like, students will, whether it's just personally that they're not able to continue with the program, they do offer like a flex plan where essentially like they have to not retake. It's like if stuff is just hard and overwhelming, you can essentially take a break from school, but you will get moved to the class that comes after you. So my class, I want to say, is about like 44 or 45 students, but 5 or 6 of them are originally from the class of 2022, and my class is 2023. So
Gotcha.
whatever it is that those students ran into, that they just weren't able to continue with the curriculum when they were in their first year, they are now a part of my class. And some of my original class dropped down to the class of 2024.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Hannah. My name's Shanil. I had a few questions for you. You mentioned clinicals. I missed the part on how long they were, and when you go to clinicals, do you room with other people going to the immersions, or?
That is a great question, Shanil. So for our clinicals, we have two weeks. So my first 2 week was in the middle of spring semester, right after midterms. I am on my second one right now, which is a 6 week. And then our third clinical experience is another 2 week. I want to say it's at the end of November, mid-November. It'll be after finals are done for our fall semester. And then I have an 8 week at some point in the spring, summer next year. And then the 2 long ones basically compose the entire third year. For immersion or for clinicals, housing is like up to you. If you get put somewhere else, it's your responsibility to find housing. So you can look for Airbnb or you can look for a hotel. I wouldn't recommend either of those because they're expensive. What I use is a website called rotatingroom.com. It is it's kind of like Airbnb, but for students in medicine. So it's people who are hosting their homes, like the host of the place that I am staying at right now. She's a physical therapist. They rent out their spaces affordably, like really affordably, compared to Airbnb or otherwise. And if you have a space that if you have an extra room in your home, you can offer that up too. And you can host a student or somebody, a resident. And it doesn't have to be just in physical therapy. It can be in medicine, pharmacy. But the thing is, you need like a university email. So like you have to verify that you are truly a student and you're just not trying to get like the good rate. And then for immersion, we Airbnb. So my classmates, the ones that I'm close with, like we all go in and on an Airbnb, and me and like my 5 people, we all stay together. There's some groups that stay in a larger house. With COVID being a thing, school kind of discouraged that and to stay in smaller numbers. But there is actually a hotel that opened up next to Health Science Campus, a Hyatt House hotel that has like a little kitchenette. They've been offering rates for students while they're at immersion. So if you don't have a group to stay with, if it's just you, or if it's just you and one other person, there's a hotel that's walking distance if you won't have a car when you're there.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Another question I had for getting ready for your immersions. How do you specifically kind of get ready to do the hands-on work? Just going through these Zoom classes, like do you have somebody you practice on, or? Yeah.
Yeah. So my fiance usually is my community volunteer, and just every week we have our asynchronous content. So every week, like I have modules that I have to watch for each class. I have to have those all done the week prior that we have our live sessions on Zoom. And I'm practicing skills for patient management. Usually all of the skills that we do are for our patient management classes. So that's like really the hands-on physical therapy stuff. But it's constantly practicing when I'm not in Zoom class or doing asynchronous content. So that way, when we get to immersion, it's not like, oh my gosh, this is the first time that I am doing a PA glide of the calcaneus on the tibia. Like, what bone is that? What am I doing? Like, no, you should know, like, if you get called on when you're at immersion, you should be able to have a general idea of what you're doing and touching the right things. But like an instructor might be like, okay, like, move your hand here is better. But we actually, the spring semester, we had a lot of students request like, hey, like, can we just have Zoom with an instructor who's willing to just give us feedback and watch us do our skills on Zoom with our community volunteer. So you'll get a table that folds out. USC gives a discounted rate with having a portable table. That way you can like actually like practice on a good surface, not just like
Awesome.
like a sofa or something.
Okay. Sorry about this. Lastly, I have another question. How are your tests preparing you for the NPTE, and can you take that early if you wanted to?
I'm not sure how early you can take it. Any PT program, like their goal is to get you to pass the NPTE. So I'm hoping that USC is preparing me to take it. But if you want, there are tons of other like workbooks that you can buy that are like, what's the word I'm looking for? Just like extra help. But I don't feel right now that I need to do that. I'm not actively studying for the NPTE right now.
Yeah.
I'm just making sure that I get everything done and paying attention in my clinic and just listening to the therapists who are licensed, getting what they have to say and getting their wisdom. And then for year 2, doing cardiopulm, doing neuro, all of those really hard topics. So probably year 3 will be when I really start to hammer down and study for the NPTE, which it will likely be a refresher on all of the things that I've learned in year 1 and 2. And you can take it earlier, like you can take it before graduation. But you can also take it after graduation. I don't know how many months you have, but I think I plan on taking it before graduation because I'm trying to get married right after graduation. Putting off our whole wedding because I'm in school.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, Dwayne and Chanel, we really appreciate your very thoughtful questions, and Hannah, thank you for your insight. I know the rest of the crew kind of bounced and, was like, Hannah, you had great stuff to say. So we appreciate them coming. But Hannah, is there anything you would like to add? Maybe you can share as far as like, how people can find you, because we're definitely going to have this recorded and posted. So people watching on the recording, maybe they can, find a way to contact you if they have any questions.
Yeah, I can leave for those who are on Instagram, I can leave my handle. I answer my DMs typically. I can also leave my email.
Okay, so those of you who are watching on the replay, I'll put her handle and her email in the description below, so you guys can definitely get that. Just copy and paste. All right, y'all, so I hope this video was helpful to you and hope you gained some insight as far as what this hybrid model looks like and for USC specifically. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to comment below and I can definitely do my best to answer that. Or you can always message Hannah directly. In the description is all her links, her Instagram, her email, and things like that, so you can get in contact with her. I hope this video helped inspire you to choose USC's hybrid program, or maybe decide, I don't want to do a hybrid program and I just want to be in person. No matter where you stand, I am here to always support you as your physical therapy school coach, and I'm here to get you accepted and live intentionally and abundantly through the physical therapy school process.
Every day is a great day to lift weights, lift others, and lift yourself up. Stay lifting, stay aloha. God bless. Have a great one, you guys.